I'm Rebecca Ruggles, and I'm the Director of Special Projects for Baltimore Medical System. And Baltimore Medical System, BMS, is a community health center, and we provide basic health services to people in medically underserved communities. Because the Baltimore Resettlement Center is located across the street from our Highlandtown Health Center, we've had for, I think, 8 or 10 years, or longer maybe, a relationship with the Resettlement Center to provide the medical services for refugees when they first arrive in the U.S. And right now, one of the larger groups is from Bhutan. The Bhutanese refugee community is a group of ethnic Nepalis who were a minority in their own country of Nepal. I believe many years ago were forced to leave, went to live in Bhutan, and then were no longer welcome in Bhutan and became refugees again from Bhutan and had to go back and live in a refugee camp for a long period of time before they were granted asylum in the U.S. One of our ways of engaging in the conversation with them was to utilize a high school student intern who worked with us both last summer and the year before. Her name's Anna Weary. And Anna went out and interviewed a lot of the refugees about what they were perceiving as changes in their diet. And the first thing they told her was that their biggest problem was that they couldn't grow their own food, that they were used to having their hands in the soil, that they were used to having a connection to where their food came from. They would eat a lot of their own vegetables that they had grown themselves, and they couldn't do that now that they lived in Baltimore City. But Anna knew that that actually wasn't the case, that you can grow your own vegetables in Baltimore City, and that many people are, because she and I had worked together a little bit, and I had shared with her what I knew about the community gardening movement. So she came to me and she says, is there some way we could connect these refugees with the community gardening movement in Baltimore? I said, well, there is a very well organized community gardening resource network through the Parks and People Foundation. It's called Sea Green for short, and we should connect with them, and we should find out where there are community gardens in East Baltimore, near where these refugees live, and see if we can help them to start their own garden. One of our resources was the Herring Run Watershed Association. I asked some of our partners there about where we could find a community garden close to the housing complex where most of the Bhutanese live. And we were referred to Denzel Mitchell, who has a community garden that feeds about 5 families right off of Brems Lane in East Baltimore. This is about 10 to 12 blocks away from the main housing complex where the Bhutanese families live. So it's not ideal from a convenience standpoint, but we were able to shuttle them there one Saturday morning in late August, and we spent hours poring over his garden, talking about his crops. 30 people came out. We expected 11. We had been told by the medical interpreter, who is an employee of Baltimore Medical System, his name is Kada Upreti, that 11 members of the Bhutanese community would come to see Denzel's garden. And in fact, over 30 people showed up, and they were immediately picking up the tools and weeding the garden for him and asking him questions about what he plants and what can be grown. And they identified a weed that he would have had them weeding out of his garden, and they said, oh no, we eat this. This is a garden this is a green. This is a delicious green. They took home a handful of weeds for their salad that night. And he gave them a couple of plots, and they were able to kind of get a start in planting some late fall crops. But Denzel's advice to us was to look for something closer to home, because they would need to be going out every morning to water their crops once they got everything planted. One of the most important things in selecting a garden for people is to make it close to their home, because you will always underestimate the number of times you want to go and the amount of work that it is. So you want to minimize the distance. So one day, Keisha and I, my colleague from Baltimore Medical System, we got in the car and we started driving around the apartment complex, and we saw various, empty spots in the apartment complex. We thought, I wonder if they'd let us have a garden there, and it's going to be really hard to sell. And so we finally built up our courage and parked the car in front of the management office and went in and thought we were going to, very tentatively introduce this idea. And the words were no sooner out of our mouth than the woman in the management office said, oh, the Goodnow Center wants to have a community garden, and they're right over there. You could walk there from here. And so we found the ideal location. It was like everybody was waiting for this to happen. Everybody was ready for it to happen. So the task before us right now is to think about the spring of 2010 and how we are going to reach out to a diverse group of people in the Bhutanese community, find the ones who have English language skills, find the ones who are motivated to do gardening. We know they're there, they already came out, but we need to develop a lot of relationships with them and to help them understand how they can really get this garden started up. So it's going to be some material resources. It's also a community organizing effort that we need to engage in. It's not our typical healthcare activity, but we know that the root causes of the health problems that these people will start to have 2 to 4 years from now can be prevented if we can do this work of organizing them to have their own community garden. That's what's exciting about this moment, is that because we've worked with enough refugees and new immigrants of the past and seen what happens when they don't have access to fresh fruits and vegetables, this is an opportunity for us to say, let's break that cycle right now and get them connected to the land. And we know that there's a community gardening movement in Baltimore, and we know that there are many people who have experience with community organizing, and we just need to find a way to put it all together.